Hello, movie lovers. Welcome home. My name's Amy Henserling, and you're listening to Watch This List Unplugged. This is episode 8 of Insomnia Cinema. I have with me a special guest, Patrick, who designed my Watch This List logo and who I've been friends with for quite some time, though tonight is the first time that we have interacted with each other. Oddly enough, Patrick. Like,
Yeah, in video.
yeah, in video.
Yeah.
So
I don't think I've ever seen your face.
in your life,
Well, I mean, I think I've seen pictures, but when we were talking years ago, you used to not post any pictures of yourself online.
this is true. And now I have a podcast where I'm on camera, which is really strange if you think about it.
Yeah,
Um
we all change. We all grow up, Amy.
yeah. I love how I just said I knew you for years and you're like, I don't know if I've seen your face. This is really going well. Um so I wanted Patrick to be on here because I figured that he would choose something interesting, and he did. He didn't disappoint. He picked Clerks for his midnight film, which you said you've seen like 50 times, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. This is like probably one of the most important films to my childhood self.
Right. So you saw it for the first time at what age?
I was about 13 or 14. I saw it in the beginning of 8th grade, so in 1997. So I think the fall of 97 was when I saw it for the first time.
And this came out in
Maybe the
94.
spring of 97. Yeah. Maybe it was
And
7th grade.
and it impacted you. Do you actually remember the first time?
Oh, yeah. No, for sure. Cause like it was rated. So first of all, Clerks was released and it like was not released in theaters.
Mhm.
It was like back in the 90s, it was like a VHS tape that kind of got passed around. And um it was also rated NC-17 because of the language in the film
Oh,
and the
wow.
subject matter. So like it had this like reputation of like, and it was like with the porn at the local video store. Like we couldn't even get like we couldn't go. I knew it existed because somebody told me about it. Like on
So it was like in a back room or something? Like, was it like
Well,
hidden
right.
away?
Well, so I might have seen Mallrats before Clerks, technically, because and I
Okay.
mean, so because that movie was more like everybody could watch it. It was kind of more palatable, family, and I was like, "This is amazing," but I want to see Clerks, and it was like, "Oh, we have that, but it's in the cupboard." Like at the video store. So when my mom was out of town, I had to convince my dad to go down and rent it for me and my best friend Ian. And
And he
like
did it?
Oh, yeah. I think he thought we
Oh.
were getting into porn and we were watching Clerks.
And he still that's amazing that he would think that and still go for it,
I think
though.
Yeah, well, I think it was, like, one of those things where he's like, "They're grown boys, their mom's away for the weekend, I just wanna, like."
Let's go to Blockbuster as a family. Let me escort
Hey,
you to the
this
back
is not a
room.
podcast about my parents being bad parents. I mean, a little bit could be a podcast about my parents being bad parents, but
No, Patrick, no judgment. To be fair, my mom used to drop me off at Blockbuster when I was
Mm.
like 11 years old, and I would just pick things. I had a Blockbuster card, and I would just pick things off the shelf and rent them. And then I'd wait for her at the corner, and she would pick me up. So, I mean, I picked a bunch of stuff that I really should not have been able to
This is
see.
the most old people conversation that I've
I
had in a
know.
while.
We also just discussed that we're both millennials. So, spoiler alert, Patrick and I are old. I
Yep.
suppose. Is it
Oh,
old to
no.
be are
I
we old to be
I have
millennials?
determined that old is defined by the age group of 15 to 25, and this is the only thing they have
Oh.
going for them in life is they get to tell everybody in the world who is old and who is not.
Okay, and what is their determination? What is the
Anybody outside of 15
Oh,
to
okay. So just if you're not 15 or 25.
15 to 25 year
15
olds.
to 25-year-olds.
Right,
Get
because a
it.
26-year-old is definitely old, right? Like, I mean, to a 24-year-old or a 20-year-old or a 19-year-old, like, they're like,
Okay, I see what you're
like
saying.
you've grown up, right? Like, you're an
Mhm.
adult, like, but
Mm.
I think it's very viable that you can be like, hey, you're still a kid if you're under 25.
You know what I just realized, Patrick? This is a very Clerks conversation that we're having right now. Like, we're
All
not exactly talking about the movie, but we're, like, talking like the characters in the movie.
sure.
This is existential already.
Mhm,
It is 10 PM. Okay, so Patrick, back on track.
mhm.
Clerks was directed by Kevin Smith in 1994. Tell us what it's about, just in case there are young people watching this who don't know what it is, and why you think it's a midnight movie.
Well,
But the first part first.
um,
Why do
the
you like it?
movie oh, yeah, the description or why I like it?
Both.
Okay, so I love Clerks. I just rewatched it for the first time in about a decade a couple weeks ago,
Mm,
and I watched it with Ian. It was kind of a trip. Like we were on a vacation to Hawaii, so like the first person I ever watched it with was also the last person I ever watched this movie with.
whoa.
That was like
S-
26 years ago. So, um,
Wow.
that we met, and then it was yeah, so 24 years ago when we watched Clerks. But so I
Crazy.
think the thing that I love, I do appreciate the most this time at this age is that um it's really the dialogue just is snaps. It's still like
Yeah.
jumps out of the movie in a way that I was like kind of not ready for, like how well paced. It's almost Sorkin-esque and it's
I
like
was going to
quick.
say that. It is very Aaron Sorkin because I've been rewatching The West Wing. Sorry to like butt in, but that like I literally thought it was snappy like Sorkin.
Yeah, no, and
Yeah.
it was like I don't really like Sorkin, but so like it was like a thing where I was like a little bit, but I was interested. He also, I think unintentionally, the writer director Kevin Smith uses vulgarity in a way that's almost poetic. It's almost very like before Deadwood, because I really do feel like Deadwood kind of did that at the height of
Shakespearean.
yeah,
Yeah.
Shakespearean, and that
Yeah.
was there's a lot of iambic pentameter written into Deadwood, and like
Yes.
I could just the way the lines just kind of flow out of the characters, and even like you can tell that the two guys in the center of the movie are the best actors in the movie because everybody else around them. It feels like a student film every time anybody else is really the women. I think
Interesting.
pop. I think Veronica pops. I think
Caitlin.
Caitlin, but she has very few scenes in the movie. That was another thing I forgot about the movie. She's like barely in the film.
But memorable.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Very
Yeah.
memorable.
Yeah.
I also thought it was interesting watching a movie that's like largely about this. It's a time capsule to like this East Coast white male frustrated with being part of a dystopian society that's not moving on, and I mean there's like no diversity in this movie like whatsoever.
True.
The perspectives are from the standpoint of white men, and even with that I think that it really captures like a culture that can't exist anymore. Like even the Star Wars joke in like the third act, like the whole bit about Star Wars. I mean, at the time that was insane because that really brought me back to a time when nobody really had seen Star Wars because that movie came out before the remasters, the special edition
Right.
Star Wars. Those were in like 97, 96, that they got re-released in theaters, and then the prequels came out, and but this was like before that. So the only people who'd seen Star Wars were giant geeks. Like like the people who are still talking about them were like adult men talking about kids stuff.
Yeah.
And now
And
everybody's talking about it like it's like the
it's like
thing.
cool. And
Yeah,
before you had to be a little bit more on the fringe. Is that what you're saying? Like you had to
uh,
be a little bit more. It
to
was more
openly
unusual.
discuss Star Wars as an adult male at that time was considered taboo because it wasn't cool.
Mm,
Like I feel like that when the movie was released, it was like still a time of like I mean grunge music was really big, but it was this like seriousness of the artistry and like I don't know. It just was like nobody was talking about cartoons.
yeah. And they do it with a sort of reverence.
Definitely.
Like
Definitely.
it's like they're talking about being in church. I mean, I like it's sacred
Yeah. Yeah.
almost.
No,
and very
totally.
near to them. Like emotionally they're involved.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
yeah.
totally. Totally. And I love that there's also one of my favorite scenes in the movie is like when Randall spits on the guy. Like,
Mhm.
um, because he and I just rewatched it with one person on my team, and but it's an amazing scene because he's saying, I'm not defined by my title. Like that's the whole point of the scene. Like you
Mhm.
can't tell me that I'm supposed to just work at a video store and not want to rent videos from another video store because I should want to represent this job. But I
Right.
don't represent this job. This job is just the thing I do to pass the time. It's not who I am. And he spits on the guy to prove the point. And like Dante is like, okay, here are the keys. But the cool thing about the juxtaposition between Randall and Dante is a reference to Dante's Inferno and like the seven levels of hell. And so, like, you have this main character who constantly throughout the movie is complaining about his station in life and everything that he is happening to him constantly. Yet,
Right.
every situation he's in, he chose to be in throughout the entire film. And Randall's the opposite because he knows he chose and he doesn't care. He's making the best out of like his choices, even
Mhm.
though his best is to be kind of like like that scene where he like I don't appreciate your ruse.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
like that's such a great scene. So woman's like, "What?" And he's like, "You're ruse, ma'am. You're cunning and attempt to trick me." And like he's just picking on the customers because that's what he's got to do during the day.
Well, and it's such like I guess I didn't think of Deadwood. I thought of like Justified, where
Mm,
like the characters talk and communicate in such a way that like you kind of don't feel like people who they're playing would ever be able
right.
to speak that way. But then I don't know if Clerks, like, it seems like from what I've read about it that at the time people who were the same age really resonated and it didn't come across as like artificial or stilted, even though to me watching it today, like,
Yeah, no one talks like this.
no one talks like that. But do you think that when you saw it at the time, did it come across that way, or was it
Well,
like,
so it's important because I was a kid. So I
I
was
know
like
you were, yeah.
13 when I saw it. And for
Yeah.
me, here's the thing about Clerks. So is it like I saw it around the same time the internet was coming about. And one of the things about the Clerks that's really important to know is like it was released in a trilogy of like three movies that came out kind of back to back and from different studios, but they all reference each other. So
Mm,
in Mallrats, TS in the very beginning is about to propose to his girlfriend and he can't because he told some girl who was supposed to be a contestant on his girlfriend's dad's game show that the camera adds 10 pounds. So she went swimming in a pool and did laps and then she had an embolism that popped in her head and she died. That's the
okay.
funeral that Dante and Randall
Oh,
go to. like
okay.
like
Okay.
so and even like Dante Hicks, there's like in character references to like the other characters from the other movies throughout the three films. But I mean, I
And the
remember
third one is what?
Chasing Amy,
Chasing Amy? I was
which
gonna
I
guess
think
that, but I
out of
wasn't
the
sure.
three probably ages the worst. Like I
Yes.
love Chasing Amy, but like
Yes.
yeah, it
I did
is.
I liked it when I first saw it when I was, like, maybe, I don't know, 15 years ago, and I saw it, like, last year, and I was like, "Oh,
It just
this
didn't
is"
age with our PC
e
culture now. I mean, even
yeah,
like the PC culture, like 15 years after it came out, wasn't like conducive to stuff that was being said in Chasing Amy. And
RIP.
yeah, but I think Clerks still like it's interesting to me because as much as Chasing Amy doesn't age well, Clerks I do think does, but only because it is offensive and it says a lot of things that are not okay in the film. But one of the things that it is doing is it's capturing. I mean, so Kevin Smith made this movie. So I don't know if you know the story behind the movie, but like
Go
basically,
for it.
um, he wanted to go to film school. He went to community
Mhm.
college, dropped out after a semester because he was like, "This is dumb." He met a guy named Scott Mosier, and him and Scott Mosier he wrote the script for this, and him and Scott Mosier decided to fund it themselves They
Mhm.
got cameras. They hired the actors in the film are mostly from local drama actors like in New Jersey. He
Yeah.
filmed it at his job at the convenience store. So the reason why Dante can't open the shutters
Ah.
is because they had to film everything inside the store at night.
Okay, so they didn't wanna betray that it wasn't daytime.
So they just said some
Some
hooligans like put
Right.
glue in the locks and like that's why they couldn't.
Beautiful. This is
And
like indie to the max. This
so
is
he
like
made it for like I think
low
under
budget.
$25,000.
Wow.
He shot it on film. He could only afford black and white film, which is why the
Yep.
movie's in black and white.
Yep.
Um, and it came out and it was like him and Tarantino and Rodriguez were like the it boys that came out of like nowhere
Incredible.
and were told that they were going to be the next generation of filmmakers because of in Clerks only because it was capturing that early 90s like young adult vibe in a way that nobody else was.
Right.
Um
What
uh
would you say is even close to this as far as like I mean, is there anything else that sort of does this for any time? Not just like 90s, but like that was gonna be my question I was gonna ask you at the beginning. Is there any other film that captures a
Comedy wise, no, but I think like Kevin Smith directly says that this was influenced by him seeing Slacker by Richard Linklater, like not a couple
which you
years
also
before.
love?
I love Linklater. Linklater is one of my
Yeah.
favorites, but like
Yeah.
he saw that movie and he's like, well, if that guy can make a movie, because I don't know if you've seen Slacker, but
If
Slacker is just basically a camera. It feels like a camera that's following people around randomly in Austin, Texas, in 1991.
and that's not what it is?
Well, it's very intentional. Like, I think,
Okay.
Richard Linklater, it turns out, is very meticulous and, like, crafts all of his scenes and, like,
Hmm.
but it was constructed to feel that way.
Okay. I
But to a
understand.
young Kevin Smith who's, like, 20 when he saw it, he's like, "Dude, this guy just, like, he's famous now because he just brought a camera and, like, shot." And he's like, "And it's really good." But he's like, "I could do this in New Jersey." Anyway, skip ahead to me
Yeah.
being 13, seeing Clerks as a young, I'm in the backwoods of New Hampshire, very small town, not exposed, no cities, no culture, 5,000 person town. I've never known anything else. And I see this thing and it's like about young, creative white men who are like, I don't know. It was just like, there's so many levels to the movie for me where I'm like, I saw what I could be like as an adult. Like, that was what I saw the movie. Like,
But is that a good thing? Like, did you wanna be like them, or did
oh,
you just
totally. All through high
Okay.
school. The smugness, the like
Incredible.
intelligence, the like the wittiness, like they were
Mhm.
cool because they were talking about things I thought were cool as a 13-year-old.
Okay.
Which is
S
important because it doesn't hit me the same way now. Because
Now,
I'm like 40 and I'm like, I hope I don't like want to look up
wanna
to
be
two
wi
22-year-olds who like sleep upside down in a closet. That opening scene of Dante
the
rolling.
opening scene is crazy. Well, and me, I watched this for the first time today in my life, and so it hits I mean, obviously, I kind of this is like one of those movies where I wish I had been either in a different time or a different age, I feel like, to see it for the first time, but I do like how talky it is and
Mm,
how, it is strangely timeless because a lot of the things that especially the scene that Dante's with Veronica and he's painting her nails, that whole scene was my favorite because I was like, "This is still true." I mean, a lot of these things are
mhm.
still they just resonate and they're no different now that I mean, then than they are now, really.
I love that like that scene to me is so well. A, it's funny because he leaves a note on the table that says, "If you're going to steal something, please let us know." And then
Yeah, if
they
you're gonna
have a
shoplift.
yeah, and then it was like, leave change, like, there's a note on the counter that
Yeah,
tells
and
the
it's like,
cus
"Be honest, tell us
yeah.
the truth."
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, but it's a really important scene also, I realized this time, because without that scene, she gets mad at him when he tells her how many women he's slept with, which
Right.
sets up his righteous indignation in the
At
following scene
37.
at 37. But it's important
Yeah.
because I don't think if she hadn't hit him, and like been like, what you're a pig, because she
Right,
basically is
right.
like, you're a pig, then like his outrage would have seemed completely out of left field.
Or
Like,
just out of line.
but
Like
it turns
who is
out
this?
later in the movie you find out that his righteousness, he was looking for a moment to get self-righteous with
Oh,
her
well, yeah.
because he wants to break up with her, but he doesn't have the spine to do it himself.
Right.
Like,
Which is Dante's entire MO,
right.
is just like what did Randall say at the end? He was like, "You're just passing the buck all the time. Like you don't
Hmm.
take responsibility for any." And also these like soliloquies happen too, where they have like these monologues that's also sound very like almost like a play,
Hmm.
really. And then the way it's structured with the title cards too is like a play to
Hmm.
me. It's not exactly like 5 acts or anything, but it is like, I don't know, almost Woody Allen
Oh,
ish.
totally. I mean, the external characters. I mean, so many of the gags in the film with the customers are like cartoonish. Like the
Like the
guy who
cigarette guy.
the cigarette guy, but also the guy who's like checking all the eggs.
Oh yeah,
Like,
that guy.
like who I realized this time I was watching it is that's Walt
The
Flanagan,
guidance
and
counselor.
he's the
Sorry.
same. He's the same. It's the same actor who plays like a bunch of different parts in the whole movie, which is super
Mm,
weird. But
yeah, I didn't even notice that. So they didn't care about continuity. They're like, whatever. Well, and this is also Jason and Kevin's introduction into, I mean, this is Jay and Silent Bob's
yeah,
first time appearing ever, right?
correct. Yeah.
And then Silent Bob just has one line, which I thought was great, about Veronica. Like
Yeah,
when
he says
Dante's
there's a
talking.
million fine women in the world, but not all of them make lasagna at work. Most of them just cheat on you.
Yeah, right. Most of them just cheat on you, but not a lot of them will bring
Yeah,
lasagna to
yeah, yeah.
work. And then he leaves. I just love Silent Bob. I mean, I love that. That's part of the reason why Chasing Amy still means a lot to me,
Oh,
because I
that
love the
scene's
Silent
really
Bob's
good. Yeah.
speech.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Silent Bob's speech is really good in the movie.
Chasing. I mean, it's the title.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
It's the whole thing about Amy, because the whole time you're like, who the heck is Amy?
Right. No, it's good. It's good. I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
I think but even that those characters are comical. I think one of the coolest things about Jason
Mm,
Mewes is because Silent Bob comes off as kind of like a cartoon character in the movie until he speaks that one line. But
right.
Jason Mewes is like an alien in the film. Like, he's just so different than anything else you're seeing on screen, and his like energy is just like bursting through the movie. 'Cause he's got to be
Yes.
like 17 or 18 in that film, and like he's just dancing around and being a fool, but like you can tell he's doing it from this place of like, this is just who he is. It's not an act.
Confidence.
It's
Hmm.
just not an act. And we all
Right.
knew those guys, like crazy guys that we grew up with that are just crazy because they're funny, but they're not trying to be. They just are.
Right. Well, and also they don't care
Right.
if you think they are or whatever. Like when he's like, "Do you want to come to a party?" and he's like, "Nah." He's like, "Oh, okay." You like they're not. You can't offend this guy or
Correct.
like or really piss him off because but he was surprisingly insightful as well. So it's like,
Well, yeah, but he also says some of the most offensive things in the movie. The funniest part of Jason. So my dad rented it for Ian and I, and then he fell asleep.
yeah, we've covered that, Patrick.
Well, no, he fell asleep, but he woke up in the part where Jason is like, and then I sucked him off like a row of circus seals. And like, my dad wakes up and
Mm,
he's like, what are we watching? He's so upset. It's like made us turn the movie off. And I was like, no, 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 no.
gosh.
It's just a comedy. It's not a big deal. He was like, what did I
It's
rent
okay,
my
Dad.
kid? Yeah.
I'm
So
grown
anyway.
up. It's like how your parents just walk in at the absolute wrong times, like for everything. That's just how it
I
is.
actually got inspired to rewatch this because that 90s show just came out, and one of the episodes centers around them trying to find a VHS of Clerks.
Ah,
That 90s show, the sequel to that 70s show. I don't think it's that great, but I was like, this is interesting that like kids now like would be like, "Oh, what's Clerks?" Because of this movie, this
yeah,
TV
but
show.
even more interesting that they feel the need to find the VHS. That's
Right.
hilarious. Like,
Yeah,
Or
she
or
wants
you
to
s
come she wants to come off cool to her friends, so
right.
she tries to get Clerks, but it's really hard to get. So the
Okay.
whole plot centers around her trying to find the VHS Clerks because
Okay,
it's
but this does okay, but the show takes place in the '90s, so that
yeah,
makes sense. I was
yeah,
about
yeah,
to
yeah.
say, because if it was like a modern show where they're like, "No, we have to watch it on VHS," that's what I thought you meant, and I was like,
No, no,
"That's
no,
kind of
no, no.
funny."
It's the
No,
same
there's no
premise as that
DVDs.
'70s show. So like it's set
Okay,
in the '90s with the kids of the first cast,
got it.
and it's weird. But anyway, I just thought it was interesting looking back on that era and like I don't know.
And people being like treating our like childhood as if it's like relics of some ancient time, you know,
Totally.
just a million years ago, and
It
like,
is. I mean, it is. I don't know. Like, I don't think a movie like Clerks gets the same kind of like cult classicness to it if it didn't have a long stretch of being an underground film that was really hard to get. Like there was,
mm,
it was not. I remember I asked my grandmother when I was like, she said, "What do you want?" She for my freshman year birthday, and like I was like, "I just want to go buy Clerks, Mallrats, and Chasing Amy," and we drove like 40 minutes to a city and like went and got brand new and they were so expensive. They were like $25 a piece,
oh my gosh.
right? And it was like hard to get them. It was
Yeah.
not like an easy thing.
Why did that happen? If he was so famous with Tarantino and Rodriguez, then why were they
Well,
not?
so Clerks was considered so vulgar and edgy that it just
Oh, I see
was
what you mean.
not. It went out through Miramax. Like Weinstein kind of picked up. Interestingly, Clerks is probably responsible for Goodwill Hunting that would happen like several years later because Ben Affleck was in Mallrats.
Chasing Amy.
Yeah, yeah, and Chasing Amy, but
Mhm.
he met Kevin Smith in Mallrats, and then
Got it.
he um he introduced them. Like they actually asked Kevin Smith to direct Goodwill Hunting originally,
Oh my
and
gosh.
he
And
was
that's
like, he read the script. He's like, I am not the person like who
no,
should do
Gus Van
this.
Sant, right?
Right?
That's
Yeah,
Gus
yeah.
Van Sant. Yeah.
But he
No.
introduced everybody to. He introduced Ben and Matt to the Weinstein. So like when Ben
Mm.
Affleck when they won, was it the Oscar for it?
For best screenplay.
Yeah, but he thanked Kevin Smith on stage, like at
Oh.
his acceptance thing, because he was like, we wouldn't have even. It was interesting. So
Well, and then they were in Dogma too, which I love.
yeah,
I
hard to
like
get
Dog
that
I
one because you know who owns the rights to that?
who?
Harvey Weinstein, and he's in jail,
Oh.
and he personally owns
Oh.
the rights to it, not like through
S-
the Weinstein Company. Like he personally owns because he put up his own money for Dogma.
Wow, so he really believed in Kevin Smith.
Yeah,
That's interesting.
yeah.
Hmm. So he did some good things.
It depends on how you
Le-
feel about the
I
sequels,
was
but
I was about to say, please don't quote me on like Harvey Weinstein did some good things.
no.
Cause
No, you're the one releasing this out into the world. I'm just telling the history.
thanks, Patrick. Okay, so why is this a midnight movie even though you and I didn't really discuss? Because Patrick was like, well, what is a midnight movie? Like what constitutes a midnight movie? And I was like, great, we're just toast on this point. But what do you think this is something that should be watched late at night? Does that make a difference? Or
Oh
is this
yeah. I
sort of
mean, you
just
can't watch I
okay, tell me
can't
why.
I have a son who's 4 and he cannot watch this
Patrick,
movie.
this is
Like
this is not the definition of a midnight movie. Are you crazy?
so is midnight movie like something you why is late like better? I don't understand.
So midnight movies are usually ones that are kind of crazy, kind of edgy, not edgy, I guess, necessarily, but like weird,
Mm.
sort of fever dream state.
I think this
Where
could constitute that because it's not. Well, especially now, like it's a black and white film it's set in 1994 about a bunch of
mm,
people who are not like I mean, you can see where at the time it resonated with the youth, but like these people are like I looked up their ages. Dante and Randall are like 52, 48, between 48 and 52 and like I'm hitting 40 and I'm just like, yeah, I'm not young. I'm not.
yeah, you're not between 15 and 25.
But I also think it's also it's a short film. It's like 90 minutes. It does
Yes,
not
it
feel long watching it. Uh
I the only reason I don't really think it is because um, in order to really savor the dialogue and the pacing and everything, the nuance of it, I feel like you wanna be sort of present and, like, coherent. So to me, this is like a film where you'd wanna, like, watch it
If you're watching
when
it
you
for the first time. I mean, I
if you're watching it
I
for the
will
first
say,
time.
like, I can watch
Yeah.
like, the best way to watch Clerks is to be a bit stoned and it to be, like, 11 p.m. and, like, I know all the
Okay.
lines and just the facial expression of the guy alone who's, like, watching the cat take a shit, like, on the like, while Dante's on the phone.
On the phone.
It's like
On the payphone.
yeah.
This entire episode has just been about, being past a certain age. So, I hope everyone has enjoyed it because this is what it's turned into.
I think there's not many scenes that aren't my favorite, but, like, I love the, like, "Forgot your keys," scene where in the very beginning where the guy's like, "Where's the dude Randall? I'm trying to return my video,"
Oh,
and
right.
he's like, "You don't have an important job," and he starts, like, righteously telling Dante how he should take his job more seriously, and then he leaves his keys on the counter, and Dante just tosses them. I just loved it. I loved it. And Randall walks by him and is like, "No time for love, Dr. Jones." Like that's the guy. And I'm just like, what a bunch of shitty kids. And I know I'm at the age now where if some kid talked to me that way, I'd be pissed. Like if I
Right.
like but
It's yeah, and I also love, I mean, not love because it's so uncomfortable and cringe, but, like, when the woman with the child comes in and she's like, "Oh, do you have this, like, really nice movie that my kid loves?" And then he just, like, spouts off all these
horrible porn type.
horrible,
Yeah. But
horribly
it's here's my thing is if you're my age now and you're watching that, or if you're an adult and you're watching this
mhm,
film
yeah,
and you're repulsed by the movie, you forgot what it feels like to be a
them,
shitty between
like
15 and 20-year-old. Like the pursuit of cool is like the point of being a young person. Like when
mm,
you lose that, and that's my point. That scene where he's saying all that stuff is hilarious to me because it really directly confronts you and says like, "Can you still hang? Like, are you still funny? Like, because that's funny. That's objectively hilarious. I mean, because it's
yeah,
so inappropriate."
and he doesn't and he has no shame. I mean, he almost has no awareness that it's even that way. Like, like, it's like, what was the title again? Like, he says all these things, there's, like,
Happy
20
scrappy
titles.
hero pup.
Right.
Now, as a
Yeah.
parent of a toddler, I'm like, "Yep, this is." I would if I know I would walk into a video store now if they existed, and
If they
I'd be like, "Do
existed.
you have Paw Patrol or some stupid, cartoon?" And
Uh-huh.
like, I'd have to deal with a snotty 22-year-old who's like, you know, just messing with
Yeah.
me, and I'd have to be subjected to that because I'm old. Like, that's
This is the moral of the story. But I would say, yeah, Clerks is a it is a good movie that's held up over time,
Mhm.
unlike some of Kevin Smith's other stuff.
Yeah.
And you should see it if you haven't. And I think that if you didn't see it as like a Gen Xer and you didn't see it as a millennial, then right now it'll be very interesting. Like you said at the beginning, time capsule
I think it's
that
his
that'll
best.
take you back.
I think it's his best movie. I think it's the sharpest in the sense that it's like observational.
Mhm.
It's very raw to the point where like you can feel that they just got off of their shift and are making a movie at the end of and like the realness of everybody in the film is it's just important. Like, there's no one who watches this movie and is like, "Oh, this is a great made film." There's no like great
Right, right,
cinematography or
technically.
yeah, no. But
Mhm.
it's good. Like the writing, like again,
It's the
it's
writing.
the writing. And
Yeah,
and the plot's terrible, but like it's
I
still
know.
like what happens to poor Caitlin at the end of this movie is like just so bad, and I'm like, "How?" Even watching it because I don't like the part where I'm like, it's cringy is that scene, as
Yes.
well as the whole leading up to that scene where he's watching the porn, like, in the convenience store
It's
when
just
Caitlyn comes in and he's talking,
unbelievable.
he's just
Yeah,
yeah, it's just
yeah.
offensive, and I'm like, this is not
Yeah,
help.
but that ending is the most just jarring. So you're in for it if you don't know what happens to poor Caitlyn,
Yeah, but
or
just
I
shit her
suppose what she
getting
makes
up. I
happen.
mean, there's no way that scene gets even made now. Like, I mean, she gets onto the ambulance and she's like with the dead body. And then for some reason, Willem, aka Snowball, wanders into the ambulance as
Snowball.
well. Like, and
Oh,
the ambulance just drives off into the distance with this like PTSD poor female. And I'm like, who wrote this scene? The scene is like,
Kevin Smith.
I know.
He can go pretty far. He can go pretty hard
Well, and I think that's
sometimes.
why the two characters that really pop in the movie are the ones that are probably most like him. Dante and Randall are him. And outside
Right.
of
It's
those
like two
characters,
sides of
they're
a
like
coin.
flat, right? Every other character is very flat in the film.
Yeah. Yeah, and he sort of like one of the my favorite people on Letterboxd, Rob, wrote in his review that they're like both represent, like, anybody can relate to both of them.
Mhm.
Like, there's one side and then there's the other, and like you can find something in either one that you can relate to or
Who'd you relate
identify
to
with.
more?
Probably Dante, unfortunately. Although the most I related to was Veronica.
Yeah.
If you're asking me like the two guys, it'd be Dante versus Randall. But like in all, I would say Veronica,
I think,
where she
yeah.
just gets pissed at the end and she's like, I wanted you to do something with your life. Goodbye.
I'm,
You know?
yeah, I'm very troubled by like, and when watching it again this time, I was very troubled with his Dante's an actual jerk to women in this film. Like it is like, and I am completely, I did not see that the first like
Hmm.
40 times I've seen this film because I was idolizing these people. But now as a 40
Yeah.
year old, I'm like, these guys are 22. Oh my God. Why is he picks a fight with his girlfriend. He's talking to
Hmm.
another girl on the phone. And I'm just like, he's not even remote. Like it's so bad. Like, I think a cursory watch of this movie makes Dante seem like the rational one, but I'm like a deeper glance at that character, and you're like, no, he's a
Randall's a little bit of a better person because he's honest.
he's a bit of a sociopath. I mean, Randall's got no
Yeah.
empathy in the film towards just about anybody. So like,
But he does tell the truth, Patrick.
yeah,
Whereas Dante is kind of a sleaze.
you hate gatherings, but what does he say? I I hate people, but I love gatherings.
But I love gatherings.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay, well, Patrick, thank you for being on. I appreciate it. This was a fun trip. Glad to see your face.
yeah, you
And
too.
we'll see you at the movies.
All right.